You were born into a storm you didn't choose. The air of your childhood carried more tension than tenderness. Every word seemed to hold weight, every silence an unspoken threat. You learned to scan the room before you spoke, to read faces faster than a heartbeat. It wasn't fair, and yet it shaped you. This story isn't about glorifying pain. It's about understanding the alchemy of survival, how the soul refines itself through friction. The strongest steel is tempered in fire. The same truth lives in you. Your family may have been the forge, not the final form. Some people grow where love is abundant. You grew where love was conditional, unpredictable, sometimes absent. That kind of environment forces the psyche to adapt. You built sensitivity into armor, alertness into instinct. But behind that vigilance, a quieter truth waited. You were not meant to stay in survival mode forever. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your childhood was that darkness. You didn't ask for it, but it invited you, maybe even dared you, to awaken early. Every argument, every moment you felt unseen or unheard left a mark. But each mark is also a map, showing where your soul began its descent and where it will rise again. You see, suffering alone doesn't make you strong. Reflection does. Transformation does. The moment you decide not to pass the wound forward, you break the ancestral chain. You stop repeating. You start transmuting. You may still feel guilt for outgrowing the people who hurt you. You may still believe that love means fixing what's broken, even when it's breaking you. But strength isn't staying where you shrink. Strength is recognizing that the same fire that burned you can now be used to light your path. Take a breath. Feel how your body still braces for impact, even when there's no danger. That's old training, the nervous system's loyalty to the past. Forgive it. It was trying to protect you, but now the task is different. You're not here to brace, you're here to build. This is the moment where healing begins, when you realize that your story isn't about what happened to you, but what you chose to make of it. You were never meant to be a product of your pain. You were meant to be its artist. There's a structure inside you waiting to be rebuilt, not from idealized peace, but from earned clarity. You don't have to erase your history to transcend it. You only have to stop letting it define the limits of who you can become. The family that wounded you gave you tools disguised as trials: awareness, endurance, intuition, the ability to sense emotional shifts others can't see. These are gifts, though they came wrapped in chaos. Your soul collected them one by one, not to stay trapped in that house of mirrors, but to build a foundation strong enough to hold truth, love, and freedom at once. You are not the fire's victim, you are its proof. You can't grow toward light without meeting the dark. Individuation, the process Jung called the birth of the true self, is not a gentle blooming, it's a breaking open. It asks for friction, contradiction, pressure. It asks you to stand in the middle of your own chaos and not run. No tree grows to heaven, Jung said, unless its roots reach down to hell. You've lived this truth already. The hell wasn't a mythic place. It was the tension in your childhood kitchen, the shame that lived in the silence after every outburst, the nights when your mind built stories to explain what love should never have to justify. Those were your roots digging into the underworld, not to punish you, but to anchor you deeply enough that you could survive the winds above. You learned early how fragile people can be, how moods shift without warning, how love can turn into absence in a single breath. That awareness, born from chaos, became your compass, but it also became your cage. The same vigilance that kept you safe also kept you small. Individuation begins when you notice that cage, when you see that the traits that once protected you now limit your expansion. Hyper-awareness can keep you from trusting. Self-reliance can harden into isolation. Compassion can become self-erasure. The task isn't to throw these parts away, it's to teach them new jobs. The self, not the persona, not the wounded child, begins to speak when you stop performing for safety. It whispers through exhaustion, through that subtle ache that says, "I'm tired of surviving my own story." That's the threshold. You feel it in your body before your mind admits it. The process of individuation demands that you confront every inherited lie, that love must hurt to be real. That chaos is your natural habitat. That peace is suspicious. These aren't truths, they're trauma's lullabies, and you've outgrown their rhythm. You may still fear that healing will make you soft, that peace will dull your edge. But the opposite is true. True peace sharpens you. It makes your perception cleaner, your actions more deliberate. It replaces hypervigilance with presence. You stop scanning for threats because you start trusting your strength. Think of your psyche as a forest fire. Everything false must burn so that what's real can take root. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. Wholeness includes the parts you've exiled, the anger, the grief, the longing to be seen. You don't heal by silencing them. You heal by listening without letting them drive. Every trial you've faced was an initiation. Each betrayal forced you to define what loyalty means. Each rejection made you refine your boundaries. Every loss carved space for something more authentic to arrive. The universe was never punishing you. It was sculpting you, removing what wasn't essential so your essence could emerge. So, yes, friction is necessary. Without resistance, the muscle never strengthens. Without shadow, the light has no depth. You are both root and flame, descending and rising, breaking and forming, dying and awakening. The call begins in chaos, but it doesn't end there. The call ends in sovereignty, when you can look back at the storm and say, "I know who I am because of that." You no longer mistake survival for identity. You no longer need the battlefield to prove your worth. Individuation is not escape, it's integration. And you, the one who was forged in the fire, are ready to stand in both worlds, the one that burned you and the one you are now building. The soul has a strange way of compensating for what it lacked. What you didn't receive in nurture, you learned through necessity. The human psyche adapts. It grows new senses in the dark. These senses become your gifts, but they're double-edged. Each blessing carries its curse. You've probably felt them your whole life. These dark gifts, shaping how you move through the world, how you love, how you protect yourself. The first is hyper-awareness. You notice what others miss. A shift in tone, a glance that lasts too long, a pause that carries danger. You learned early that safety depended on reading the room, predicting emotion before it erupted. It made you intuitive, almost psychic. You became fluent in micro-expressions, in moods, in energy. But this awareness, left unrefined, becomes hyper-vigilance. You live half a second ahead of reality, always scanning for a threat that might not come. It exhausts you, this invisible work. It keeps you from relaxing, from trusting what is good simply because it is good. The transformation begins when awareness becomes presence instead of prediction, when you use that same perception not to avoid harm, but to deepen connection. Your sensitivity is not a flaw, it's your gift of empathy in raw form, but to wield it, you must let the body rest. Safety must no longer depend on constant analysis. The second dark gift is early autonomy. In a toxic family, you learn to self-soothe young. You stop expecting rescue. You become capable far too soon. You take care of others, clean up emotional messes, hold yourself together while the adults unravel. That independence becomes a badge of honor, and later, a barrier. You tell yourself you don't need anyone. You wear self-reliance like armor, even when it's crushing your heart. But autonomy without connection becomes isolation. True independence is not about rejecting help. It's about choosing support consciously. You can still be strong and let others stand beside you. The moment you allow someone safe to witness you, not the mask, but the truth beneath, your autonomy matures into agency. You're no longer reacting to life, you're participating in it. The third dark gift is deep empathy. Because you've seen suffering up close, you understand pain with uncommon depth. You can hold space for others when they're falling apart. You feel their sadness as if it were your own. You make people feel seen because you know how it feels to be invisible. But empathy without boundaries becomes self-erasure. You become a savior, pouring yourself into others to avoid your own emptiness. You take responsibility for everyone's healing except your own. You confuse compassion with sacrifice. The task is to turn empathy into discernment, to know when your care is helping and when it's rescuing, when you love from fullness, not from guilt, when you understand that saving everyone else is often a way of avoiding your own rebirth. Each of these gifts, awareness, autonomy, empathy, can imprison or empower you. The difference lies in integration. You don't have to reject them or overuse them. You only have to bring them into balance. Awareness turns to wisdom when you slow down. Autonomy turns to freedom when you trust others. Empathy turns to love when you include yourself in it. And when all three align, something extraordinary happens. Your pain stops defining your relationships. Your intuition becomes art. Your independence becomes leadership. Your compassion becomes purpose. These dark gifts were never meant to keep you trapped in survival. They were meant to prepare you for creation, to turn your sensitivity into strength, your solitude into sovereignty. Awareness without evolution becomes a prison, but awareness transformed through love becomes your key. Healing without structure drifts. Reflection without rhythm fades. The A.R.C. method exists to ground transformation. Three movements that turn awareness into action. Anchor, relate, create. They are not rules but directions, a compass for the soul that's tired of spinning. Anchor. After years of hypervigilance, your nervous system doesn't know how to stand still. It's used to scanning, tightening, preparing for what might go wrong. Anchoring begins when you stop asking the body to perform miracles and start asking it to rest. You anchor through simple rituals, the kind that seem too small to matter but quietly rewire everything. A slow morning before the phone touches your hand. Breath that fills the whole chest, not just the upper lungs. A walk without headphones. Stillness that doesn't demand productivity. These are acts of rebellion in a world addicted to noise. Anchoring doesn't mean avoiding emotion. It means returning to the present after emotion floods you. The body learns that calm is not the absence of feeling, it's the container for it. Over time, your system stops chasing control and starts remembering safety. When you anchor, you build a home inside yourself. Relate. The second movement of A.R.C. is connection, but not the kind you were taught. In toxic systems, relationships are built on roles: rescuer, pleaser, scapegoat, caretaker. You learn to bond through pain, trauma glue, as some call it. You sought safety in familiarity, even when familiar meant unsafe. Relating through awareness changes the pattern. You begin choosing people not for their wounds, but for their values. You start noticing consistency instead of chaos, curiosity instead of charisma. You realize love doesn't have to feel like adrenaline. It can feel like exhale. The shift is subtle but powerful. You stop auditioning for belonging. You stop explaining your worth. You become magnetic to those who are also anchored, people who know how to stay, not just how to spark. Relating in this new way requires boundaries that breathe. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They allow love in and keep chaos out. When you say no with clarity, your yes regains its sacredness. You learn that distance can be an act of devotion to yourself, to peace, to truth. Create. The final movement of A.R.C. transforms your past into power. Creation is where the alchemy completes itself, When you make something from your wound, art, writing, teaching, helping, you reclaim authorship over your story. You stop being the character trapped in the plot and become the writer of the next chapter. Creation doesn't need to be grand. It can be the way you speak to a child with gentleness you never received. It can be a journal entry, a song, a garden. What matters is that you express the energy that once only imploded. Every creative act is a declaration. I survived and now I shape. The A.R.C method is cyclical. You anchor to steady the self. You relate to expand it. You create to express it. Then you anchor again, a rhythm as natural as breath. When practiced over time, A.R.C rewires the nervous system and the narrative. You no longer live in reaction to your history. You live in response to your calling. The trauma that once fragmented you becomes the structure that holds you. You are no longer the child waiting for peace to arrive. You are the adult creating it. Every soul lives inside a story, a personal myth. It's not just what happened to you. It's the invisible script explaining why it happened and who you believe you became because of it. Most people never question theirs. They just live it, like actors reciting inherited lines. But at some point, when pain repeats too predictably, you begin to wonder, whose story am I still serving? If you grew up in a toxic family, your personal myth likely began with suffering. Maybe it whispered that you were chosen for endurance, that love was earned through fixing others, that your worth was measured by what you could tolerate. You wore resilience like prophecy, the strong one, the survivor. But under those names lived exhaustion. You didn't ask for that title, you inherited it. Repairing your myth doesn't mean erasing the chapters that hurt. It means rewriting their meaning. You can't change the facts, but you can transform their function. What once read as punishment becomes preparation. What once proved unworthiness becomes evidence of depth. The story expands from I was chosen to suffer to I was forged to serve, with boundaries. The old myth was built on endurance. The new one is built on purpose. Endurance says, I can take it. Purpose says, I can transform it. The difference between the two is evolution. To begin the repair, pause and name your current myth. Write it if you must. Something like, I was the one who held the family together, or I always attract people who need saving. Then ask, what if this story was training, not destiny? When you reinterpret your past as preparation, shame turns to clarity. You stop being the wounded character and become the conscious narrator. Jung believed myth wasn't fantasy. It was the psyche's poetry. The symbols we live by shape how we see reality. To heal, you don't destroy your myth, you refine it until it reflects truth. Each week, write what I call your purpose statement. One sentence that begins with, this week I serve by. It could be, I serve by listening with presence, or I serve by protecting my energy, or I serve by creating something honest. This ritual grounds transformation into practice. Over time, it reprograms the subconscious to associate strength with meaning, not with suffering. Then choose one smallest viable act, something concrete, humble, and doable. If your new myth is about creation, draw. If it's about peace, rest. If it's about truth, speak one. Don't chase grand gestures. Grand healing happens through small consistencies. You'll know the myth is repairing when you stop identifying with your wounds and start identifying with your growth. You won't feel the need to prove how strong you are, because you'll finally trust that you are. You'll stop auditioning for roles in other people's stories because you'll be writing your own. And slowly, the narrative changes voice. The same sentences that once sounded like grief start to sound like gratitude. The same memories that once defined your pain begin to define your wisdom. The same home that hurt you becomes the birthplace of your clarity. Repairing the personal myth isn't self-help, it's soul architecture. You're rebuilding the house of meaning, where your self can finally live in peace. You are not the chosen sufferer. You are the conscious forge, the one who turned inheritance into insight, chaos into compass, endurance into empathy. And this new myth doesn't end with surviving. It ends with serving, wisely, freely, and whole. When the fire quiets, you face a new kind of challenge: peace. After years of equating love with intensity, calm can feel suspicious. You've spent so long decoding chaos that safety feels foreign. But this is where the true test begins, because the soul, once forged, must learn to live unarmored. Healing doesn't mean you stop wanting connection. It means you stop confusing connection with rescue. The patterns that once ruled your relationships still whisper, prove your worth, earn your place, save them, and they'll stay. But you've walked through too much fire to live by that myth again. Healthy love doesn't demand your suffering as proof. It doesn't ask you to shrink so someone else can shine. It doesn't need fixing, saving, or deciphering. Love after the forge is steadier, less cinematic, more sacred. It's not the adrenaline of pursuit. It's the exhale of being met. To find it, you must first practice self-containment, the ability to hold your own emotional weather. It means you no longer hand your peace to others for safekeeping. You can miss someone without dissolving. You can disagree without abandoning yourself. This is maturity, not detachment, but groundedness. Before you invite new love, make a silent vow. I will not confuse intensity with intimacy again. Intensity burns fast. Intimacy grows slow. You used to fall for sparks, the familiarity of instability. Now you wait for warmth that lasts. As you navigate new relationships, remember the 5 safety criteria, your compass for peace. Consistency. Do their actions match their words over time? Accountability. Can they admit when they're wrong without shame or blame? Curiosity. Do they seek to understand rather than assume? Reciprocity. Does care move both ways? Not perfectly, but intentionally. Slowness. Are you allowed to unfold at a human pace, not a trauma tempo? If these 5 are present, love becomes sanctuary, not strategy. But there's another truth. Sometimes the healed version of you no longer fits the roles others expect. People from your past may accuse you of changing, and they'll be right. You've stopped performing pain to stay connected. You've stopped mistaking loyalty for self-abandonment. Let them misunderstand you. It's a sign of growth. Love after the forge also means knowing when to leave, not from fear, but from clarity. You don't owe anyone the old version of you. You owe yourself the continuity of peace. Still, connection matters. The soul isn't meant to heal in isolation forever. The difference is that now you choose from fullness, not from famine. You choose people who meet you at eye level, not those who need you to bend. You choose partners who see your strength not as threat, but as mirror. When love arrives, it won't feel like conquest. It will feel like recognition, the quiet knowing that you can finally put down the sword. You'll realize that the strength you once used to survive is now the same strength that allows you to stay soft. You are no longer drawn to chaos. You are drawn to congruence. You no longer chase repair. You embody it. This is the final transformation, love that doesn't need saving because you no longer need saving. The forge was never meant to keep you burning. It was meant to make you luminous, tempered by truth, defined by freedom, capable of love without losing yourself. You're not strong because you suffered. You're strong because you transformed. And now your strength no longer isolates. It connects. The fire is over. The light is yours. This is where the story turns from survival to authorship. You've spent a lifetime walking through fire, learning the texture of fear, the language of silence, the ache of being unseen. But the fire was never meant to define you. It was meant to reveal you. You've been conditioned to believe that strength comes from enduring pain, that the proof of your worth lies in how much you can take. But true strength isn't endurance. It's evolution. It's the moment you decide to stop repeating the wound and start rewriting the myth. Pause for a moment and look at what you've built from the ashes. You've learned to anchor, to ground your nervous system instead of living in defense. You've learned to relate, to choose connection that nurtures, not drains. You've learned to create, to transform chaos into meaning. You've repaired the story you inherited, and now you live one of your own design. That's not survival, that's sovereignty. You no longer carry pain as an identity. You carry it as wisdom. You no longer fear your triggers. You study them, disarm them, and turn them into tools. You've realized that healing isn't about forgetting the fire, it's about remembering that you became the flame. The world around you may still celebrate pain as proof of power. The martyr's glow, the suffering saint. But you're moving differently now. You understand that compassion without boundaries is collapse, that empathy without discernment is erosion, that love without self-trust is captivity. You have nothing left to prove by hurting. From this point forward, every act of peace you choose is a declaration of strength. Every moment of rest is rebellion against everything that tried to break you. Every boundary you set is a monument to your self-respect. Look at how far you've come, from child of chaos to keeper of calm, from walking on eggshells to walking in clarity, from the one who absorbed everyone's pain to the one who transforms it into purpose. You are the fire, yes, but you are also the forge, the hands, and the metal that refuse to melt. And yet even in transformation, the shadow waits. The part of you that learned to sabotage safety because chaos feels like home. The part that whispers, if it's peaceful, it's not real. This is the next threshold, the dance between light and the unconscious, between freedom and the familiar pull of destruction. That's what comes next, the exploration of self-sabotage, the shadow's favorite game. Because even healed hearts can fear happiness. Even awakened souls can crave old pain when peace feels too still. But you're ready for that confrontation. You've built the foundation. You've met your darkness without losing your light. So as this chapter closes, carry this truth like a quiet vow. You are not strong because you suffered. You are strong because you transformed. And the transformation is not over. It's deepening. Next time we enter the mind's underworld again, not to relive the wound, but to expose the pattern that hides beneath success, love, and peace. The shadow will test what you've built, but this time, you'll see it coming. This time, you'll play differently.